Hello from Board Developer. It's Business Ahas, a show about the eureka moment that launched you into the next level of success. I'm here with your host, Jim Hayden, and I'd like to welcome our fantastic guest this month, J.W. Rayhons. J.W. is president of Rayhons Financial and an investment advisor representative. J.W. grew up in Iowa with a Midwest work ethic and hometown values. Arizona's been his home since 1997, and he's been serving financial clients since 1999. JW is married with 4 children. His wife, Tiffany, works with an understanding heart in the health field as a registered nurse. JW volunteers with Junior Achievement and enjoys coaching youth sports through multiple organizations, including the YMCA, Boys and Girls Club, and the Junior Sons and Junior NBA. JW is also a certified Gallup-Strengths Coach and has served on multiple community boards and committees over the past 10 years. We cannot wait to hear his business aha. Take it away, Jim.
Oh my gosh, Danny, thanks for a great intro to JW. And obviously being friends with JW for more than a dozen years, it's been quite a thrill to call him not only a friend, I would call him a close friend. And over the course of time, have developed our relationship both professionally and personally, and getting to know each other's spouses over the course of the years and our families. It's been quite a thrill, JW. And having you on the show today, I'm very, very excited about that. And as everybody knows, I don't know the aha moment, but it's never shared with me ahead of time. So I'm surprised like everybody else is. So I'm extremely excited to hear yours today because of how long we've known each other, and am really interested in you sharing with the group on what that aha moment was. So JW, take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Jim. And really, I want to begin by just expressing, how precious this friendship has been and the way that we've gotten to know each other over the years, and just everything that it's done in both of our lives. And I thank you for that. But I also want to congratulate everyone that's listening, because it means you're investing the time to not just hear a story, but because you probably want to grow or get better in some way. And so I really want to congratulate everybody that's listening with us here today. And it's exciting to be able to just share a few things and see what people do with what they learn. So I really appreciate the opportunity. So Jim, you tell me how this works. Is this where we jump into like the aha story? Is this right here?
You just go where you jump in? Man, obviously the shock factor. Have you watched any other one of the aha moments? There's been a couple of them where like mic drop. And so it's been fun, but it's you're in charge.
Yeah. So sometimes our greatest business aha moment doesn't come from business at all. A few years ago, I completely lost all sight in my right eye. We're talking like black. Couldn't see anything out of my right eye. Nothing. Went to the emergency room and they're like, yeah, read the chart. And I go, there is no chart. That was one of the greatest turning points in my business, and even ended up moving to the launch of a second company was that moment and what I learned. And from a surgery, being able to regain my sight in my right eye, there were like 3 valuable business lessons that I learned from that experience. So those could be where we start if you want to.
Sure. I'm curious, what year was this? So let us wrap our head around the year.
Yeah. So this was in 2007. We're in the car. We're actually on our way to Sacramento to visit Tiffany's brother and his family. And I get this little dot in my eye, and I don't think much of it, but by the next morning I woke up and that dot had literally erased all of my sight out of my right eye. It was completely black.
Oh my gosh. Okay, we're ready for the 3.
So here's 3 valuable lessons that I learned from that experience. The first one, don't let fear get in the way of your impact. Don't let fear get in the way of your impact. And here's what I mean by that. Sometimes, especially in business, we need to take some action before we feel totally ready to take that action. I'm sure many of you have been in that moment, right? You're not quite sure what the next step is going to be, but it feels like this is the right thing to do. You've probably done some research and you just know you got to take this step, but it's ahead of where you're comfortable taking this step. It could be at hiring people. I know for me, there's been several times that I didn't feel ready to hire the next person, but I knew if we were going to continue to have a greater impact, then that meant hiring someone, which meant taking on responsibility to help them provide for their families and the people that they care about. Sometimes it was in launching a completely new company in another area I knew nothing about, but knowing it was the right thing to do to help create a greater impact. And so that was the first lesson, was don't let fear get in the way of your impact. The second one, and this one is one that I think will resonate with a lot of people, and that is slow down to get ahead. As a part of the surgery that I had to reattach my retina, the recovery from that was that I actually had to lay face down for 2.5 weeks. And so I was fortunate. I had a friend that had a massage table that they no longer used. And so every morning when I would wake up, and by the way, when I walked around, I was supposed to walk around looking straight down anytime I had to walk somewhere. And then I laid on this massage table for 2.5 weeks face down. And fortunately, you know, with the donut hole on a massage table, I could still read and I could write and I could think. And so sometimes we have to slow down to get ahead. And through that time, it helped me realize how valuable it was for in our businesses to take the time to think about what's actually going to get us ahead. In other words, even if we think of what's been going on over the last couple of years, there's so much happening in our day-to-day. There's so much change going on in our day-to-day that it's important that we realize how valuable it is to do things like getting out and getting on a strategy retreat. That was a practice we put in place after I had to spend those 2.5 weeks. It was helping me realize we need to spend some time to reflect. We need to spend some time really thinking about where we're going, where we're headed, what we want to do, what we want our impact to be. And so from that point on, every year, we've invested the time and effort and resources to get together, have an annual strategy retreat, really think about where we're going. And then we added in quarterly mini retreats for that reason. Investing in training. You know, there's a lot of companies, it's like, well, when things get tough, the first thing to go is sometimes the most valuable things that help us get ahead. And like training, how important is it to continue to invest in your people? It's not always the easy decision to make, but it's exactly the type of decision that helps you slow down to get ahead and get where you ultimately want to be. And then, my goodness, the third lesson, and this is one that when we think about what's going on and all of the adjustment and the innovation and the thinking and everything that's been happening over the last several years, I have to tell you that third lesson in losing my sight to clear my vision, losing my sight to clear my vision. And when I think about how that applies to business, I'm going to ask all of you, just try this for a moment, okay? Just try this. I want you, now, assuming you're not in the car listening to this, I know probably a lot of you are in the car listening to this. And if you are, don't do this exercise until later. But if you're not in the car, then just try this for a moment. Just for a moment, just kind of glance around you, look around and observe, just kind of see what you see, right? So look around. Now, close your eyes. And with your eyes closed, begin to think about what you observe about what's happening around you. What do you hear? What do you smell? What do you see with your eyes closed that you didn't see when your eyes were open? Now go ahead and open your eyes. You see, as important as it is to be able to see what's happening around us, sometimes taking the time to erase our sight, taking the time to close our eyes to the immediate things that are happening around us will actually clear our vision for where we really need to go. And so I'll leave you with this. Out of those three valuable business lessons that I learned, of don't let fear get in the way of your impact, and of, slow down to get ahead, and of, losing my sight cleared my vision. Sometimes that's exactly what we need in order for us to remember why it's so important that we're excellent in what we do and that we pursue it with excellence every single day. So, Jim, that was the aha moment for me back in 2007, was detaching my retina, losing my sight, and figuring out that was actually going to be an acceleration point in our business and the launch of a second company.
It's remarkable. What resonated with me, and I'm really interested in your perspective to this answer. We've been doing the business ahas now for some time. The majority of the people's aha moments did not happen to them in business. The majority of folks that have come and surprised us with the moment was when they were a child, was when they were growing up, when they were in college, and that set the path for them. We had one particular one, which was Mikey Maynard, when he had his horrific medical scare and almost died. And so similar to you having a significant medical event in your life that scared the out of you.
Yeah.
Right. And then allowed you then to rethink. So I'm curious, what advice would you give to a leader to go through this exercise and really take it seriously? Because obviously you don't want somebody to have a medical scare and almost die or lose an eye, or as we well know, lose your hearing from a very close friend of ours.
Yeah.
To have this awakening, if you will. What would your advice be to that and at those individuals?
Thank you for asking that question. There's a couple of things that come to mind. One is, as simple as it sounds, sometimes gratitude can be so powerful. When we really think about what we should be thankful for, it can sometimes clear our minds to give us some of our most brilliant ideas. And so that's maybe one piece of advice is I would say, no matter what's happening in people's lives, no matter what's happening in your life, there are things to be thankful for. There are things to be grateful for. And it's in those moments we sometimes get our greatest ideas. The other thing that I would share.
Let's stay there for a minute, JW. Let's go back.
Yeah.
So let's be specific.
Mm-hmm.
So you say gratitude.
Mm-hmm.
So would you recommend that somebody sit and pause for a moment and write down the top 3 things that they're grateful for, and then do something about it?
Yeah, that's a great exercise.
And then do something about it. I mean, is it? I'm grateful that my parents are still alive, but what are you going to do about that?
That's right.
Well, I need to call them, or I'm gonna take action. Okay.
You got it.
So the tactical step would be is for you to take inventory of the top 1, 2, 3 things that you are most grateful for, and then what are you going to do to express that gratitude?
Exactly. Yep.
And then do it. And then do it, right?
That's right. And then follow through. And by the way, I mean, you'll receive some of your greatest forms of compensation just from doing that. And I'm not necessarily talking about money. There are many, many forms of compensation. And sometimes that simple action that you take, like in your example, being thankful that your parents are alive, reaching out to them, let them know how much you love them and care about them and how much they've done to influence your life. Imagine the note you might get back. Imagine the response you might get back. What a huge form of compensation, if you will, that is. So here's the second piece of advice that came to mind that I'll share with everyone is, many times, and it falls in line with this thought of gratitude, but there's been many times where I've simply, in the quiet moment said, you know what, no matter how much success I'm given, no matter how much achievement I'm given, please help me remain humble. And if I need a hard reminder, please give it to me. And when I thought back on some of my greatest aha moments, they ended up being moments where I needed that reminder. Where it's like I was either trying to push too hard or go too fast or, try to do too much. Or, those were the moments where it was like, okay, I've been asking for, like, if I need a reminder on how to stay humble, then hit me with it. Yeah, losing your sight in your right eye, I probably needed a pretty heavy reminder at that moment, because I remember I was pushing pretty hard to get through some business things that were going on. And it was like, no, somebody was saying, look, man, you need to slow down for a moment. You keep pushing like this and something else is going to happen. And so sometimes I even have to be forced to slow down. I have to be forced to practice those 3 valuable lessons that I shared with everybody.
So the advice that we would give, or you would give to a leader, entrepreneur, really anybody, to go through this exercise, theoretically, obviously we want them to go through the exercise, because it was not a fun exercise for you to go through. But number one was to embrace gratitude. And number two would be to be humble.
That's
Remind yourself to be humble.
Yeah.
That's really
moments,
go ahead.
In those moments of being humble, it opens us up to learn. It opens us up to listen. It opens us up to these simple things that we know work really, really well. But in the mix of the chaos, if you will, that can sometimes happen as a business leader, as a business owner, we sometimes forget that it's those simple things that give us our greatest levels of success, our greatest levels of acceleration, our greatest levels of accomplishment. So when you remind yourself to be humble, it allows you to listen and learn.
We get advice as leaders very often, never let your foot off the gas pedal, right?
Yeah.
But what advice would you say now? It's okay to tap the brakes.
Yeah. And I'll put it to you this way. I'll use a very quick illustration. I enjoy getting out and going hiking. I enjoy being outdoors. And one of the things that I realized about my hiking routine that I found out later is kind of the opposite of a lot of people is, like, if I'm looking for a workout, so I'm not just out there relaxing for the hike, but if I'm looking for a workout, I tend to run the ups and walk the downs, which I found out later is the opposite of what most people do. So when you talk about how we're taught, keep your foot on the accelerator, keep your foot on the gas, think about it this way. When things are most challenging, that's when you need to be putting in your greatest effort, right?
Run.
So those ups on a hike, if you run the ups, that means you're putting in your greatest effort when things are challenging, when things are uncertain. When things are good is actually when you might need to take it a little slower to go, okay, how do I make sure that things continue to go good and I don't face injury? Because when you're hiking and you're on the way down, if you're running those downs, you're actually more prone to injury than when you're running the ups, because it's harder on your joints, it's harder on your knees, you could slide. And so run the ups, walk the downs.
I cannot wait to watch you run up the Grand Canyon.
That would be a long way up.
That's a fantastic analogy.
So Jim, we should add this in, and it's okay to take a breath and walk and take a break from time to time.
Yeah. So I was told to run up this mountain and I had a heart attack because JW told me to do it.
Yeah. It goes back to the be humble part. When you're at your limit, know it's time to take a break.
I'm very grateful, JW, for our friendship.
Me too.
And when you were told the story, which I had never heard, it did remind me immediately of you and my very close friend who is now battling losing her hearing. And remind me of her and remind me of how much I've enjoyed reaching out to her in the last few months when she's at a down time to help her up.
That's right. That's a great reminder for all of us. We have people around us that are struggling. We may not even know if they are struggling. There's always more to someone's story than what we see. When you get a gut instinct that you should reach out to someone, just do it. Reach out to them. Even if you don't know why or don't have a reason, just say, hey, I was thinking about you. Just want to check in and see how things are going. That means a lot to people. So I appreciate you bringing up that reminder for all of us to say, you know what, if someone's on your mind, give them a call, give them a text, send them an email, however you want to do it. Drop in and see
absolutely.
them. Yeah.
I've always learned that birthdays are a good reason for not having a reason to call someone.
Yeah.
Because all too often, if you call somebody out of the blue, their instant response is, "Who died?
Yeah.
Why are you calling me?"
Yeah.
Or if you don't have, if you say no, I just called to say hi. No, you didn't.
Yeah. Hey, you know what you just reminded me of? So here's a bonus business thought. If you want to add it into your notes as like a fourth valuable lesson, here's a bonus one you just reminded me. I've had this longstanding belief. I can't tell you where it came from, when it started. I don't know, but I've had this longstanding belief that when what you do is not what people think you do, they get more out of what you do. So when what you do is not what people think you do, they get more out of what you do. Here's what I mean by that. When I think of some of the greatest organizations out there, their purpose, their reason for existence is always bigger than the product or service they provide. Always. People get more from what you do when what they think you do is not what you actually do. What's the greater purpose in your organization? Why do you exist? Why is excellence so important for your organization? Put some thought into that, and people will get so much more from what you do than what they think you do.
Love it. JW, thank you. I loved it.
So JW, I'm so glad that Jim brought us back to this moment, because I have a lot of questions.
Go for it.
So up until this moment, had you had thoughts or about this other business, or this feeling like, okay, like there's more that I can do, but you were kind of feeling held back, or you were worried about how you're going to make two businesses work? And then when you lost your eyesight, you were like, whoa, like walk me through that a little bit more.
Yeah, no, there was what I'll just consider a coincidental series of events after I was kind of during recovering from surgery, and then shortly after that led to the launch of the second company. And so there was no idea, no effort, no pursuit of a second company prior to that.
All right. Well, okay. I have a question now, I guess, about you developing the company, and after your surgery, you're slowing down.
Mm-hmm.
So when you started to slow down and you made those plans, was there a point where you're like, okay, now I need to rev up again. Now I need to get going. Was there like a moment, or was it just?
Excuse me. Thank you for the question on that, Danny. So let me clarify a little bit. So I continued the existing company, that continued. And then the launch of the second company came shortly after that. So here's what I mean by those moments of slowing down. So obviously that was kind of a pause period. And there was also the realization at that time that I need to do a better job of building a team. In other words, I cannot continue to operate a business that solely relies on me, because I'm not as invincible as I think I am. And so that led to starting the building of a team, really the focus on where do we take the moments to pause while we still focus on growth and strength of our organization. So I wouldn't say that it's necessarily like a start and stop sort of pattern. It's more of we're on the move, but we take the moments to do those annual retreats. We take the moments to invest in training. We take the moments to really take the look at the bigger picture of what's really happening around us and be observant of that, so we can capture the opportunities that maybe others don't see. So it's more of that flow, if you will, as opposed to a start and stop.
Fascinating. After 2007, and then previous to 2007, did you by chance have anybody say to you a year later or 6 months later of why have you changed so much? Did it happen?
That's a great question. There were definitely people that noticed the difference, but not in terms of, like, say, my drive continued to be very strong, if not even stronger. So more of anything, it was the focus of going, no, there needs to be time for certain things that are more important in my life than even the business. And so it was putting boundaries around my work schedule, making sure that for the most part, evenings and weekends were available for my family. It was things like that were the noticeable differences, putting priority on getting to the gym and going to church and taking time to read and getting thoughts on paper and doing writing. So some of those things that would kind of get put on the back burner before made it right to the top on a regular basis. And so that was probably the greatest, I guess, change people started to see was those adjustments I was making in my overall life, not just my business life.
I love that. So I was going to ask you, you talk about taking the time to think about getting ahead. And so what are those like habits that you've changed to carve out that time for you to think on a regular basis?
Yeah, I appreciate you asking that, Carrie. So I think here's some advice I'll give, and then I'll share an example. So the advice I would give is any of us have to figure out where we get our greatest creativity from and the environments we get our greatest creativity in. And so each of us have to think about that in terms of who we are and where we operate best when it comes to thinking and being creative and idea making and things like that. So for me, I tend to like to maximize time. And so for me, going to the gym and working out is also a time where I put my headphones on. Now, see, some of the people that see me at the gym on a regular basis, now you're going to make me give away my secrets. So I have my headphones on when I'm at the gym, but it doesn't always mean I'm listening to something. And so a lot of times I've got the headphones on because as I'm going through the motions of going to the gym, something I've done for so long, I don't have to think about the motions of the workouts I'm doing anymore. I'm actually creating ideas and letting my mind run with getting things down. So a lot of times if I go to grab my phone, it's because I'm putting notes in my phone of ideas that have come in my head. Same thing when I go to church. For me, going to church is a time for just pause and reflection and learning. And I take my iPad into church with me and I'm taking notes. And sometimes I've gotten really good business ideas while I'm listening to a sermon.
Wow.
For me,
JW,
also
I
getting out on the Harley. Yeah, no, go for it.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry. When you got out on the Harley, go ahead with the last one.
Yeah. So for me, getting out on the Harley or taking the car up into the mountains and driving through the mountains, a lot of times I'll take our kids with me, and while we're out there, while we're hiking, while we're, on the Harley, while we're in the car driving through the mountains, those are all moments for me anyway, of where those ideas or that creative thinking happens. For others, it might be different scenarios.
So you mentioned the first two, and I absolutely started to chuckle. So when I run or work out, especially if I'm in a gym or running outside, I don't wear my glasses because I don't want anything else to distance-wise. I can see fine without glasses. I mean, I can drive without wearing glasses, but everything else is a little fuzzy, but allows me to reflect. So interesting for when I'm actually exercising outside or at a gym. And then for me, you mentioned church. Obviously, we can't take cell phones and iPads up into mass. But a lot of Catholic churches have what they call adoration or adoration chapels, which give you the opportunity to pray alone. And when I used to go to adoration frequently at night, I would go in for an hour, and that really gave me time to just reflect. And so I think the magic there, the word that you maybe you're not saying is give yourself time on your own accord to reflect. Fair?
Yeah. And so Carrie, the last piece that I'll add in there for people to think about is understand when your body throughout the day is in the right state for that. So like I'll use myself as an example. I get up early. I naturally only sleep about 6 hours. I'm usually up somewhere between 4 and 4:30 in the morning. I usually go to bed somewhere around, between 10 and 11 at night. And I know that the rhythm of my body and the rhythm of my mind is sometimes that first point in the morning is where I go to the gym. And so I know that's when I need that time to not be doing stuff that need my focus, but to just let my mind go. And I also know that there's usually another point in the afternoon where it's good for me to have a break and just be able to get out, move around a little bit, do something different. Sometimes, like one of the things that I did when a lot of things were shut down is I would get in the car, drive to the coffee shop, drive through, and drive back. And I just called that a coffee ride. And when I went and did a coffee ride mid-afternoon, it wasn't about getting the coffee. It wasn't about spending the $5 or $7 or whatever it costs to go get the coffee. It was about getting in the car and having that time to think and reflect and pause for a moment. And it re-energized me. So any of us have to think about what's our body pattern, what's our state, when are we at our best for that creative thinking, and make sure you're doing the activities that foster that, or put yourself in the environment that fosters that.
So my aha from this conversation is that we are experiencing vastly different things at the gym. When I'm at the gym, I am intentionally thinking, don't drop this weight on my face. I'm not thinking about getting ahead in my business.
But JW, thank you so very much. This has been fantastic. And I think that the listeners, this was a thrill. If you've gotten to this point and watched every piece of today, and genuinely appreciate you taking the time with us today. And I look forward to many years to come where you and I are slowing down and pumping the brakes and not being responsive to fear, but what impact that you're still having during fear. And it's okay to slow down and reflect and be inspired and inspire others. And I'm sure we will have many more discussions around those topics as time moves forward.
I'm sure we will. And thank you for the invitation. Thank you for the opportunity to just share a few stories, a few ideas. And obviously my hope is that everyone will get the greatest value they possibly can out of what we've had the opportunity to discuss.
Very good. Thank you, JW. Until next time.
Thank you for tuning in to Business Ahas, brought to you by Board Developer. If you enjoyed JW's story and can relate to his aha moment, please share this podcast with your friends. We'd really appreciate it.